Can you even believe this? The administration from Trump is not just hiring back, no, it is begging hundreds of office managers to come back to work. These are the same people who were fired by Elon Musk in the name of efficiency. What level of a lack of skill is this? This administration has proven time and time again that they just do not know what they are doing, even as judges have stated that the management cuts from DOGE were against the law, but the damage is already done. Today, we are going to get into the fallout from their latest mistake, and we will see exactly how this so-called efficiency plan completely fell apart. But before we unpack all of that, if you end up liking this video and want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on the alert bell before you go. It makes a huge difference. So, let us set the scene. The year is 2025. The second administration from Trump decides it wants to trim the fat from the federal government. To do this, they bring in the supposed genius of efficiency, Elon Musk, to run a new agency, the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, and its first big move was a purge. In early 2025, a mass firing of newly hired and promoted federal employees began. We are talking about roughly 25,000 people, 25,000 public servants in their trial periods, suddenly shown the door. The move was so extreme and so chaotic that the courts had to step in. In March, a federal court blocked the cuts for a short time. It ordered the rehiring of thousands of workers across many agencies, but the relief was short-lived. An appeals court reversed that decision, and in April, some of those same employees who had just been brought back were fired again. Can you imagine that? Fired, rehired, and then fired, all in a matter of weeks. This was not just a legal mess, it was a hurricane of disrespect and a mess that destroyed real lives. And nowhere was that clearer than at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA. More than 600 workers there were let go, including hurricane hunters, weather experts, and storm modelers. This happened just before a summer of extreme weather events, mind you. The chaos for these employees was a complete nightmare. Some former NOAA workers started receiving letters in the mail. These letters were titled, "Demand Notice for Payment." The government was billing them, sometimes for hundreds of dollars, for healthcare coverage they did not even have. One former special assistant, Yael Green, said, "They are trying to bill me for health insurance after I was fired. I had no coverage. It is just more salt in the wound on how incompetent all of this has been." Another person, a former budget analyst named Sabrina Valenti, said she could not even get the proper paperwork. "I was fired 4 months ago and I still do not have proof I was fired," she said. Think about that. How do you apply for unemployment? How do you get a new job without proof you were let go? The story from Green gets even worse. She had surgery in April, a time when she was technically brought back and on paid leave. Paychecks were coming in and health insurance costs were being taken out of them. But after the surgery, she learned her coverage was not actually active, so she paid for insurance twice and received it 0 times. She said, "I am getting letters demanding payment of more than $14,000 for my surgery. This is the human cost of governing by chaos. It is not just numbers on a spreadsheet, it is financial ruin and emotional damage inflicted on public servants for a political stunt." And what did the courts have to say about this political stunt? Well, a federal judge, William Alsup, finally issued a ruling, and the words from him were absolutely crushing for the administration. He ruled that the mass firings were in fact against the law. He said the Office of Personnel Management, the OPM, illegally required the firings. He accused the administration of hiding key information, stating that the record they submitted to the court is a sham. He said the whole process was like walking him through a forest while blindfolded. The judge found that the OPM had illegally taken powers that Congress had reserved for each individual agency. But here is the most tragic part. Judge Alsup said that even though the firings were against the law, too much water has now passed under the bridge to order everyone to be rehired. The damage was already done. So let us recap. You have a chaotic illegal purge, you have thousands of lives thrown into turmoil, you have federal agencies in disarray, and you have a federal judge confirming it was all against the law. The logical next step for any normal administration would be a course correction, a moment of reflection. But what happens when your efficiency plan is so bad that it actually breaks the government? What happens when it ends up costing taxpayers more money? Well, you get the punchline to this entire sad joke, and this brings us to the grand finale. Let us pull up this incredible piece from The Independent. Look at this headline. Just let it sink in. It says, "White House is begging hundreds of office managers fired by the DOGE from Elon Musk to come back to work. Their return will allow the agency to clear a massive backlog of work that has cost taxpayers an untold amount of money by forcing the government to pay more to stay in properties where leases had been slated for termination or were permitted to expire." Do you see? Their genius plan to save money actually cost taxpayers an untold amount of money. They fired the people needed to manage office space and purchasing. They broke the system. A former official at the General Services Administration spelled it out even more clearly. He said his former employer was left broken by cuts inflicted by the Department of Government Efficiency from Elon Musk that went too far and too fast, leaving the GSA without the people they needed to carry out basic functions. They fired the people who do the basic work that keeps the government running. What did they think was going to happen? And this was not just one agency. The problem was everywhere. The article also notes this. Last month, the Internal Revenue Service told workers who had accepted the deferred resignation package that they could elect to return to their positions, effectively rolling back an effort led by Musk and supported by President Donald Trump to slash roughly a quarter of the tax collection agency, 80,000-person workforce, the Department of Labor, the National Park Service, the Department of Defense, the Department of Veterans Affairs, the list goes on and on. They had to reverse course because the entire plan was a failure from the start. They fired thousands of people, ruined lives, broke the law, and wasted an enormous amount of time and money, only to turn around and beg for those same people to come back and fix the mess they made. This was never about efficiency. It was a sham. It was a political performance designed to create chaos. And in the end, all they did was prove beyond any doubt that they simply have no idea how to govern. Truth never rests. Defiance till the end.